This is Julie Pearson Little Thunder with the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program at Oklahoma State University. Today is May 22nd, 2018, and I'm interviewing Garland Kent, a Chilocco alumnus from the class of 1958. Garland, you're a Ponca tribal citizen. One of your vocational tracks at Chilocco was plumbing, and you turned that into a successful career doing that and pipe fitting and landing a job with Conoco. You've been in charge of the Chilocco Powwow, I think, for a number of years.
Yeah.
And I look forward to learning more about your time with the school and your career. Thanks for taking the time to talk with me today.
Yeah.
Where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in 10/22/38, and I grew up in Pawnee, Oklahoma, but I grew up here in Ponca City, Oklahoma, and spent all my young adult life, and then, well, still yet, and went to school here in the Ponca City Public Schools until I got up to junior high. Then I decided to go to Chilocco School, Chilocco Indian Agricultural School.
Okay.
And I enrolled there in class of 1954, the fall of 1954, and graduated class of 58 in May of 1958, senior class.
What did your folks do for a living?
What now?
What did your parents do for a living?
My dad was a carpenter and mom was a housewife.
Mm-hmm.
And dad was a carpenter, and he learned his carpentry trade at Chilocco way back in the early 1900s. And at that time, he attended 8 years there and up to the 8th grade. And at that time, back in those days, you got an 8th grade education, you were classified certified as educated. So that's as far as he went in high school. And but he was a carpenter all his life, and so was two of my other brothers.
Okay. Yeah, I wondered how many brothers or sisters?
What now?
How many brothers or sisters in the family?
I had 2 brothers that attended there, and beside my dad, I had 2 brothers and 2 sisters,
Okay.
and myself.
What was your exposure to Ponca culture and language growing up?
I grew up here in the Ponca area, and I remember I'm half Ponca, Otoe, and Iowa tribes.
Okay, thank you.
And my culture that I learned was from the Otoe and the Ponca tribe. One disadvantage that I had was that my dad was an Otoe member and my mom was a Ponca. And in the household, they didn't converse with each other in their tribal languages, so I didn't learn how to speak like some of them, the younger folks did, because their parents were the same tribe. So I had a little disadvantage. What I did learn through the years from what I've learned mostly from the Ponca tribe, and that it don't really affect me in any way other than that I don't know a lot of my culture way back. Some of the things I could have known due to that, because mom and dad didn't talk with each other about their tribal cultures. We did learn it through the years and things like that. And it's still learning yet to this day. There are different things that are changing from way back when I remember the things when I first got interested in what's going on. Up until the present day, the culture of certain things are changing drastically, and it's just something that we're going to have to accept. Of course, the old saying, the elder advice is still there yet, and we still go by that yet. Most of us do anyhow. The younger ones may not know that the history of the Ponca tribe or the affiliated tribe, but they are learning what they can now. But a lot of our tribal cultures are kind of going away. I hate to see that and hear that. And that's one of the things when I went to Chilocco, I knew the surrounding tribes around here in the Ponca City, Cake County area, northern Oklahoma area. But when I got to Chilocco, that's where I met many different tribes from all over the United States, and I learned their culture and their customs and things, what they do, even the things they ate, things like that. So I did learn a lot of things from them folks, those students that I went to school with. And they did learn from us also, because they were the same way I was. They didn't know the culture that I had, and they're the same way with them.
So you kind of had that family tradition. Well, your dad had gone to Chilocco. So when you first got to Chilocco, what were your impressions?
When I first got there, I didn't Didn't know if I was gonna know anybody because I knew of the school. My dad and brothers went there before I did, but when I did get there, I felt comfortable, I felt at ease because everybody was they were just like me. They were learning things that they didn't know about, and the school system, and of course we were there to learn our ABCs and things. That was the main idea. And but when I got there, I felt comfortable being there. Of course, the break-in time orientation that we had for the first month was kind of exciting and something new to me and new to everybody else. And everybody else started just fitting right in, and it worked out really good for as far as I know, anyhow.
What was one of the teachers or administrators you remember? What's one of the teachers or administrators that made an impression on you at Chilocco?
There were several of them, and two of them were English teachers, Miss Kay Arnken and Miss Mabel Walker, and they were English teachers, and they knew pretty well all the cultures of all the tribes that came into the classrooms, and they didn't single anybody out, but they could talk pretty well with just anybody. And through that, I did ask them some questions about what they knew about things that the other students that were there before me, and they were very up to date on everything that was going on. The other instructor and teacher was a person called D. Gregory, and he was in social studies, and he was not only with the national, he was with the culture of all of Oklahoma, and he was pretty well up on everything that was going on. He was well instructed on how to teach in a social studies area, the different things that we would learn, and history books and things like that. He knew exactly where to go and things like that. And there were some things when I wanted to know a certain culture or something, I would go to him and ask him, and he would find out for me. If he didn't know, he would find out. And so he was kind of a go-to guy.
Mm-hmm. But you you were interested in some of the, there were some amazing vocational offerings, and you were interested in some of those. In some of the vocational offerings, you were interested in.
Okay, one of the reasons I went to school there was that I didn't know of the vocation and the trades department was the best in the surrounding area, unless you went to a special tech school like Otoe or things like that, and you got into one type of vocation. But at Chilocco, you had a choice of many things, and all the way from learning how to cook in the kitchen clear out to heavy equipment working out in the fields, and everything in between, because Chilocco at one time were domestically self-supporting, and they had everything in between, like leather work, auto mechanic, body shop, dry cleaning, power plant operation, everything in between, carpentry, painting, masonry, plumbing, anything that a student would need to learn to get a job in any city, it was there for him to learn, or her to. And on the women's side, I don't know too much about that, but they also had cosmetology and home ec and things like weaving and those things like that, learning different types of fabrics. Now, I didn't know too much about that because I wasn't in it, but anyhow, those were the things that we, it was a hands-on thing. It wasn't just reading out of books. You actually did the job as you were learning. And like say, for instance, when I first started out, I had to learn different types of pipes, different types of gauges, and types of metal that you worked with, and also the gaskets that you put in with the flanges, and different types of elbow, different kind of material tools that you would need. You would learn all of those things. Say like the gaskets, for instance. I didn't realize there were so many different kinds, all the way from paper gaskets to monobilium gaskets. Paper gaskets, just the regular gaskets, and there were steel type gaskets and aluminum type gaskets, and clear down to the moly steel was an acid resistant type that you would use like in the Conoco, for instance, or in the refinery that you had HF or HF acid and things like that. It had gaskets and metals, so that was called moly steel. You had to learn all of those things, and that was there for you to learn. and the different types of like bolts, for instance, and things like that. The strength of one, how many 1,000-pound PSI that will hold clear up into tonnage up there, that different bolts and the strength of the pipe and the strength of the bolts and whatever material that you would need to put a pipe together. Mm-hmm. We learned all that. It was all hands-on thing, and we took care of everything on the campus. We took care of the piping, the plumbing department, and pipe fitting in all the dorms and all the school buildings, and even the employees' homes and things like that. They never had to call a plumber from out of town. Same with the auto body shop. The employees would bring their cars down there, and the students would work on it, repair it for them for free. They might have to pay for the parts, but the instructor was there to be sure that they did it right. It was a hands-on thing. They learned while they were doing the job.
Right.
And same with the dry cleaning. The students and employees would bring their clothes to dry cleaning, and that was their job to learn how to do it. Mm-hmm. And it was free. And that's fun. So we were self-supporting in a way. We were self-supporting in the leather department, for instance. People would take their shoes. Back in those days, people would take their shoes down and have them repaired rather than go down to Payless and buy another pair.
Right.
But that was the things that they did there. And the power plant supplied all the power and steam and heat and things like that. And we had people in there learning that thing. So in case you came to Ponca City or wherever you went, you would be able to know how to work in a power plant or generator plant. And those things, it was exciting to see everybody doing what they're doing. Especially in my job, I'd had to go all different places throughout the campus. I had to learn all the different types of buildings and things like that. What was in those buildings, what was in those residences, things like that. And it was something kind of, it wasn't dull, I'll say that.
Well, what is one of your best or worst memories of detail?
Of detail?
Mm-hmm.
I would say probably everybody had to do their details. Everybody was assigned a certain detail, and say, for instance, one person, like in the dorms, you had to mop and clean the hallways and wax and buff the hallways and things like that. Had to empty your trash, take care of things like that. I don't really. It was just one of the things that we had to do, had to learn, and don't really look back. Don't think there was anything else I didn't like. Of course, I just had to do it, and we did it. I might as well got to do it. Might as well go ahead and do it.
What did you do for fun?
There were several things that we could do. There was different clubs there that you could join, and they always had something putting on maybe once a week or once a month, and like socials to go down to the gym or wherever it might be and have dances and things like that. And also there was sports activities, intramural and also interscholastic, where you could go all over, and I was into that.
What sports?
I was started out in football, and I had basketball and track, and went 4-year letterman in track and 2-year letterman in basketball. Had to drop out of football. And but anyhow, those were some of the things that in the athletic department, everything was there that every school, other school had. We had it also, and I don't know if we had something and nobody else didn't have. I don't think we did, but we were Class A division, and we participated against schools like Ponca City, Blackwell, Cushing, Perry, and Guthrie, and things like those, and Stillwell. That was the class we were in, and it was one of the toughest classes in the state. And that was only one, Class A, B, C, and D. And we were Class A because our student enrollment put us over there's a certain amount of students can be in the class in the school where what class that they're going to be assigned to in sports. And due to our enrollment, and that included the Navajo program also, our high school academics from freshman to the senior year, 9th to 12th grade, and that was the regular students. Now the Navajo program, that ranged from, we call it first year to 8th year, and the first year is equivalent to kindergarten, first grade, and an 8-year student was equivalent to an 8th grade student. And then if he finished the 8-year program, he could possibly go into 9th grade and on into high school. And due to that, those students, even the little guys in the first grade, they counted as our enrollment, so that put us over the top to have to be in Class A, which was all right with me. I'd rather be there rather than be. Of course, the competition was a lot stronger, but we stood up with many things that we competed well with every school that we competed against throughout the state, and we had some top-notch athletes that came through there. That was their recognized throughout the state. And the 100-yard dash man was one of them, Don Thames, and he tied the Oklahoma State record in 100-yard dash. At that time, our dashes were classified in yards, not meters now, like they are today. And everything was in the yards, like 100 meter, 200 meter, 200-yard dash, 100-meter dash, 440-yard dash. It was in the yards, not meters. And we had some athletes that qualified, were recognized throughout the state for that. Now, when I was there, they didn't have boxing. They did before and after, but those years that I was there, they didn't have boxing. And I did know this, that some of the boxing athletes were to this day, are well known throughout the nation. And we've had some top-notch boxing athletes there. And I don't know why they dropped it when I was there. Never did know why that, but later on they did bring it back. And still, there were some athletes that still went on to fight in Chicago and Hawaii and places like that. They qualified Golden Gloves to go there. That's the kind of athletes we had there. They weren't just run-of-the-mill folks. Of course, we had some that were, but a lot of them were outstanding.
Right. So I understand you met your wife at Chilocco, Lucy.
Yeah, I didn't know Mrs. Kent before I went to Chilocco. Now, she may have known me, I don't know. But anyhow, as we entered into the 9th grade, we had a class where we would all get together and meet each other. The fact is, one of the things we had to do is we had to invite a girl from that class to take them to a dance, whether we knew them or not. And that's how we got to know each other. And I remember that first time I had a girl, Edna Randall. I didn't know her. Just her name came up, and I said, "Well, okay, whoever that is, Edna, who are you?"
Which one are you?
That's how we got to know each other. Through the years, we got to know, and then later on, I got to know her, and things just kind of stuck together and things like that, and ended up getting married. We're going to turn over 62 years, June 6th of this year.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah.
So your folks were not too far away. How often did you go home?
We were allowed to go home. Each boy and girl were allowed one weekend to go home, to visit home, no matter. And Ponca City was close to me. I got to go home every month. It was usually the first weekend of the month for boys to go home, and then the second weekend for the girls to go home, wherever they lived. And you could get a pass on a Friday evening, and you had to check back in Sunday afternoons or Sunday evening, and be there for bed check at 9:30. At 9:30 Sunday evening.
Did you ever? Were you always ready to go back?
The what?
Were you always ready to go back?
Yeah, I was. I'd go home, and I'd come home and eat home-cooked food and things like that, and Mom would cook the things that I was used to eating before I went to school, and I'd go to maybe a movie and things like that. But come Sunday afternoon, Mom would clean up the clothes and things like that, pack them back up, get ready to go.
Yeah.
So it wasn't nothing about going back. There was a lot of students that didn't want to, but I wasn't the one. I was ready to go back.
And the food at Chilocco?
Do I?
How was the food at Chilocco?
It was probably, I look back now, it was probably some of the best. And as I look, I see, I hear about different folks griping around about the food that they ate at the government schools. It wasn't like that at Chilocco. We had some of the best cooks, and like I say, the instructors in all the vocations were some of the top, some of the best. And so with the cooks and the folks in the bakery department, they were some of the best. And like for instance, when you first enrolled there as a freshman there, it was mandatory that you took agricultural along with your regular vocation, because Chilocco Indian Agricultural School was an agricultural school. And so you went through your vocation half a day, and then you went to your academic class half a day. It might be a morning or afternoon. And then one of those days through there, you had to attend the agricultural class. And there were different things that we had to learn hands-on. We weren't just there reading in books. Like say, for instance, there was a sheep shed, hog shed, horse barn, and the stock barn, and the dairy barn, everything in there. We had to learn all of those things, and it was hands-on. You didn't just go look at them, you was out there working with them. So like this time of the year, we branded little calves after we picked up the little calves. We branded. That was one of the things I had to learn. I had to learn how to dehorn a cow. In the dairy area, we had the Holstein type. We had to milk those cattle every day. You could not miss, every day. And that was one of the most fun things that everybody liked to work the dairy barn, because you got to eat all the ice cream and drink all the chocolate milk you wanted. And that was one of the things. We processed our own milk, and that we bottled and processed it, and that went to the cafeteria or chow hall. Everything in the dairy line we made, from cottage cheese to butter to chocolate milk, everything in between, we had it. And we made our own. And in the stock barn there, all the cattle there, you had to learn to work with the cattle, go ride your horse out there, learn how to round up the cattle and things like that, like you was actually on a ranch. It was what it was, a ranch. And then you work with the horses at the horse barn, work with them, and the sheep shed, you had to tend the sheep, things like that. And you had to shear the sheep. This time of the year, you would be shearing the sheep there. And so those are things that you learned. And as you would shear the sheep, everybody that knows that sheared the sheep before, when you get done, your hands are baby soft because of the lanolin in the wool. I mean, it's pure lanolin. Your hands are soft for a week afterwards.
Oh my goodness.
And things like that, you learn how to do those things. Everything was hands-on. They would tell you how to do it, then you would do it.
Right.
And it's like, for instance, every now and then the kitchen area, we're talking about the food. We had the cooks there, the food wasn't the same every day. They had a menu every day. One of my aunts, Julie Kent, was one of the nutrition that worked there, and she had every meal she had a different type of menu for every meal, the nutrition that you would need. And every now and then the kitchen would send out a request to the agriculture department to butcher 4 beef, 6 hogs, and 12 sheep for the meat line. And that took care of the meat line. Of course, in certain other things that we got, like the weenies and hot dogs, we had a contract with Maranur out of Park City at that time, and we would get some of those things from them. And same with in the ag department, we farmed our own small grain, corn, millet, wheat, oat, everything. We farmed it, planted it, learned how to cut it, learned how to drive the tractor, combines and everything. And I wasn't there during that. I was at home after school was out by then, by the time I did all farming. And they had a contract with, I think it was Winfield, someplace in Winfield. Because I know they would come down, and every day they would come down with a little tanker truck, and they would load up the excess milk from the dairy barn. And because we had gallons, and at that time, milk wasn't classified as gallons, it was classified as pounds. And they would come in and load up their trucks and take it back. I think it was St. John's out of Winfield.
Oh, okay.
And the rest of the milk we used ourselves. We were self-supporting. We supplied our own meat, and like the hog, for instance, we would have to learn how to butcher the hog, butcher the beef and things like that. And we had to learn that in case we ever needed to. That was just part of agriculture, being on the farm. Everything on the farmer would need to know, they were taught you that. The fact is, Oklahoma State would send some of their students to Chilocco and spend a week there and work with all the students throughout. A college student was learning from a high school student. So that's how well advanced we were at the ag department there.
Right.
And we were glad how those guys would take them shower with us and things like that. And they enjoyed being there.
Oh,
these guys are students from OSU. Come up to Chilocco, learn from a high school guy. And we weren't, trying to be snobby or nothing like that. We enjoyed working with them. And it's things like that. They learned our dairy, how we did our dairy line and things like that, and how we went about taking care of the cattle. And when they get done, we'd clean out the dairy barn where it was clean. I mean, we had inspectors go in and be sure that before the next herd, the cattle would come in, it was clean, with the trough, things like that. And I remember I was there when it happened. The cattle would be out there on the south side of the dairy barn. They'd be waiting to come in to be milked. And that was usually the first thing in the morning. Now sometimes it might be a different group because you rotated every day. But you were assigned 1 week to the dairy barn, stock barn. You were assigned there 1 week. But you might be there in the morning, or sometimes might be in the afternoon. But in the morning time, that's when you milked all the cattle. And I remember this one cow came in, and they knew to go right to the stalls. They knew how to go in there, and they'd put the lock down on their head, put the food and trough, things like that in there. And you get those automatic milk machines, and you cleaned off their udder and things like that, washed it all off, and they knew it. They just stand still and let you do it. Because they knew that they wanted to be milked, and we'd get the little suction cups, put it on the little tits, things like that, hooking on her. And I noticed that one cow, I was down the stall there, and I noticed that one cow kind of kicking around there. What's going on here? And that guy was looking, and he said, hey, he said, something wrong with her. And so he put it on her like that, and wiggled it around, and wiggled that one around. Got okay, a little while later, he turned that machine on, start sucking the milk. Boy, I'll tell you what, that cow went ape. And we didn't know why. So he turned it off. Boy, I mean, she was kicking and raising her head up. Come to find out, she had been out in one of the pastures that we didn't allow them to be in. It had these little round yellow birds out there, and one of those birds got in her tit. And we put that little cup on it, and she let us know it was there.
Yeah.
So we found it,
You
got
found
it out. And that was one of the things that happens there. And another time we was butchering hogs, and had them ham hock hanging upside down. And sheep and hog, you got to bleed them. You can't kill them. You got to bleed them. And we had the hog hanging upside down. Well, you go in there and you cut their vein in their throat. You put a clamp around their snout and lock it down where they can't bite you, because they're just hanging straight down. And you grab that chain and hold it down, cut the throat, bleed it. Well, this hog, this guy apparently didn't cut it good enough, bleeding, but it wasn't good enough. And that hog started kicking, and he got loose. And I'll tell you what, he scattered everybody out of the hog shed. They ended up, the instructor ended up having to shoot him because they could put him out of his misery. Plus, he had that thing on him, but boy, he was causing big ruckus in the slaughterhouse there. That was the only time that we had a miscue.
Yeah, that would, and those are really difficult things, like you say. You know, you have to have that training. You have to be able to to do that. So, thanks for sharing that story.
Those are some of the things that said we learned. We learned firsthand because we had to do it. We weren't just told to do it. We had to do it, and we had to do it right. And the instructor was right there showing us, be sure that we were doing it right. Like say, for instance, when you put a hog in there, you put him in a salt brine, you scald his hide, and you get it, and you scrape until his skin is just white, and then he was ready to be butchered. Then, and you learned all of that. You learned how to skin a cow, what parts, the knives that we use, and things like that. How to dissect it and take it apart, hang it up, and get it ready to send to the chow hall or the kitchen. And trucks would come down and they would load it up for us. But we had to learn all of that, just like we were going to be butchers, but we weren't. But it was there in case we wanted to.
Right, right. So how, when you left Chilocco, when you graduated, what happened next? When you
After I graduated in the spring of '58, came home, and of course I was married then, and that's one of the things I knew. I thought, I better learn something because I'm married now.
So you got married during school?
Yeah,
okay.
My senior year, and that's one of the reasons they didn't allow married students to attend. Both of them couldn't be at the school at the same time. One could, but not both of them. And it's still standing, and last I knew it was still standing there, because there were other students that were married. And so I came home, and in the Ponca City area, the job situation was pretty tight, and I applied at different places in the plumbing and things like that. And their only jobs that were opening were construction. And so I got into construction, building grain silos and bridges and things like that, and I became a steel man. And that to put the steel into the concrete, put it down, then pour the concrete on first later on, and that's what I was in, and I was in that for a while. And then later on, guys telling me that Conoco was getting to the point where they were getting ready to hire, and so applied to Conoco and was there.
Because they had a big plant here.
Yeah, it's right there. Mm-hmm. It was at that time, it was Continental Oil Company, and then they bought out the East Plant over here, which at that time, it started out as city service, then it went to Sequoia. Well, then the Ponca City refining, Conoco was getting so big, they bought Sequoia, and so this whole area here now is Conoco, it was Conoco, and now it's ConocoPhillips now. Mm-hmm. But that's why I went to work there and spent the rest of my working years there. Retired out of there June 1st of 2004. And I was hired on due to, when I got my certificate from Chilocco, I was classified as a journeyman plumber and pipe fitter. And so due to that training there, that's one of the reasons why Conoco hired me, because I needed pipe fitters in the refinery. Mm-hmm. And so there I was. And I worked part-time on that, and also worked in the lube division in Conoco. I learned how to make different grades of oil, and from all the way from 5W to clear up to 40-50 grease, and all the things in between. And we loaded out from little pipe cans to 20,000 gallon tank cars, everything in between that. We learned how to do that. And then later on, through Conoco, I took my EMT training, and it was at the 4th Street Clubhouse over here. I went through the whole session. It wasn't broke up in every 2 days or 3 days. It was all, every day we went there. And at the very end, we had to take, the last 2 days, we had to take a test, and you had to pass it by 90% before you got your certificate. Mm-hmm. And through that, I found out the emergency response team at Conoco they were short on first responders, and so I bid in there, and they put me in there.
So you left your old job for that emergency responder job?
Yeah, I went, it was still in the refinery, but that covered all of the complex at Conoco. And as a fire brigade and first responder, and I was in the emergency first responder brigade. And where they needed us, that's where it was. And they assigned me, because of the things I knew, they assigned me to be head of the emergency breathing air department, because there's some kind of release that happens here in the refinery. They have to go in with certain types of breathing air equipment, and I had to know all of that and teach those guys how to, and I taught those classes to them guys, all the whole refinery, not just one, but everybody. Mm-hmm. Anybody that would come into the refinery had to come through my office and my shop to learn how to use that equipment. No matter if they were just going to go down in 10 minutes and out, that was it, but they had to come to me first. Mm-hmm. In case while they were there, something went wrong, they had to use that equipment, they would know how. And that's one of the things, that class that I had to do. And I also had to give classes throughout the refinery on different types of emergency things. And it was mostly breathing air equipment, how to use it, how to put it on, and why you would use it, different kinds of what you would need. There's different types of breathing air. There's a negative pressure respirator that you're breathing atmospheric air, but it's filtered, got little filters on it. Then there's the other kind, SCBA, that's self-contained breathing apparatus. That's where you're in full hazmat gear. You're not breathing atmospheric air, you're breathing out of a tank. And you had to learn how to use those, why you would need that, when you would need it, and things like that. We've got several places here that you would need to do that. Mm-hmm. You can't just go in there if you don't, you're not going to last very long. Had to learn all the different kind of chemicals, HF, for instance, hydrofluoric acid, that's from the alky unit. A very dangerous place. It all through the refinery, due to refining of the oil, it's organic. Anything organic will decay and create H2S, hydrogen sulfide, deadly gas. That even comes out of your home because it's decayed matter. Comes up, if your sewer system is not right, come up into your home, you can get very sick. H2S is a deadly gas. There's a lot of gases there in the refinery, and I had to learn all of those. Well, that's my job, to teach those guys. And like H2S, for instance, at 10 parts per million, you got a little monitor on you. When it starts going off, it means for you to get out of there now, not stand around, you gotta go now. At 10 parts per million, you're to evacuate. 20 parts per million, if you don't, you're gonna start getting sick, and you're probably getting thrown up, or you might start getting disoriented, things like that. 50 parts per million, you are gonna get sick, and chances are you're gonna go down, and you may not make it. 100 parts per million, you're gonna die instantly. As soon as you breathe, you're dead. That's how deadly H2S is. And we had to learn all that through that. I teach those guys that. And so, now these are parts per million. These are not one part, there's parts per million. That's how dangerous those things are. And as the monitors, and let's say you get out of there, I mean, you need to get, because what it does, at 10 to 20 parts per million, what it does, it attacks your part of the brain and it paralyzes your breathing apparatus in your body. You cannot breathe. Somebody's gonna have to breathe for you. And so that's one of the things, at 10 parts per million for you to get out. Evacuate now, not later, but now. Those things we learned, I had to teach those things while I was at Conoco. And also respond to different types of releases. Fires, for instance, we had several fires down there. Somewhere, we had one fatality there. About 2 years before I retired, we had a fatality at the #1 cruise unit. Had an explosion down there, and one of our operators got severely burned that he didn't make it. Anyhow, that's one thing. I responded to that. I was one of the first ones there because I knew it was on Safety Channel, Channel 1, and my job was to drive one of the fire trucks down, engine trucks, and get it there online so everybody else, the rest of the brigade, come there and tie and hook up the hose and things like that, prepare to fight the incident, whatever it might be. But that was the only time that there was other ones that got hurt, but not like that. It was explosions what it was. And those little things like that. People talk about Conoco, oh, they get high paid money and things like that, but I'll tell you why. Once you come in that gate, you're in a whole different world. It's not like being out here on the street. It's a whole different world. It's a dangerous job.
Dangerous job.
And you're working in a highly explosion area every day, every minute of the day. You got to really be careful what's going on in a refinery. It's not like out here, and things can happen just in a second. I know it, and it has. I know it can happen, and it has. Those things I learned while I was in my tenure at Conoco.
Well, and you also had a chance to use your EMSA training. At least you had a chance to use your EMSA training at a dance one time.
Yeah, I did.
Outside of work.
Outside of work, and I learned that. I thought, well, will I ever be able to do, if I need to, will I be able to do this? And I was thinking about my own folks or somebody, my friends or somebody like that. And I thought, well, I think I probably could. I know I'd have to in the case if I come to that area there. Because at one time, if you're a known EMT person, there's only 2 states in the United States, Vermont and Missouri, that don't recognize Good Samaritan law. You've got, I think they may have changed now, but at one time they didn't recognize Good Samaritan law. So if you administered first aid to somebody, they couldn't be sued in case something happens to that person. And everybody else, they do recognize a Good Samaritan law. And I thought, well, would I be able to do that if I ever needed to? And it so happened I was at a place in Huska, and as a person went down, and I recognized the symptoms on it, and he was having a heart attack. And when I finally got to him, everybody was all around him, was crowded around him, things like that. I said, you need to get back. And he landed on the ground, picked him up, laid him on a bench. And it commenced to, when I got to him, he was cold blue. He lost lots of faculties. He said there's cold yellow, cold green, cold red, and then there's cold blue. Cold blue, you're not here no more. And that's what he was. He had no pulse, nothing, no heartbeat, wasn't breathing. So we commenced to give him CPR and worked on calling the ambulance at the same time. And about 4 or 5 minutes later, got him back. He started breathing, and he got a heartbeat first, kept giving him mouth to mouth. And then after a while, he started breathing on his own. And after a while, he wanted to sit up. We said, no, lay still. And I thought, well, it just came back. It was there. I just like, I know my ABC, like ABCD, you know that,
Right.
Well, when that training came in, it was just there. I just knew what to do, and it happened. I never thought I'd be able to. I said, well, would I be able to? And I did. Thank goodness I did know that. And
Yes.
that's one of the things that I learned from Conoco.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, I hope you never, different things that you learn in that EMT, how to set a broken leg or broken bones, things like that, even a compound fracture or a double compound fracture. And you first come upon an incident or something like that, if there's a bleeder, look at who's there. You attend to the bleeder first. And because the person, an adult, can die within 2 minutes, loss of blood. They've only got 6, you get down to 3 to 4 pints of blood down and you're gonna go out. You can bleed to death, an adult can bleed to death within 2 minutes if he's got a severe cut. So you always attend to the bleeder first, and then the rest, of course, you would think. One of the questions that's hard to answer is that if you come upon an incident or a car wreck, for instance, and a little baby's laying down in a ditch, water in that ditch, and you see this person, the man in the car, and he's bleeding, who do you attend to first, the little baby or the bleeder? Everybody, get the little baby, throw him out of there. Well, I was wrong. You tend to the bleeder first, because you get the little baby out later on. Once you get the blood stopped or stemmed flow of blood, then you get the little baby. The little baby can live in 6 to 8 minutes without oxygen. You could bring it back, possibly, unless it's really bad. And it's been known that it couldn't bring it back 6 to 8 minutes. And but that's one of the questions we had to answer, and a lot of them got it wrong. But we were told that's. It seems mean, it seems like you wouldn't think that, but that's the way it is. You tend to the bleeder first, because like a tourniquet, for instance, if you can't get the bleeding stopped, the last resort is put a tourniquet on. That's to stop the bleeding. And they always tell you, if you do that, chances are you're gonna lose that limb.
Right.
You're gonna lose that leg, or you're gonna lose that arm due to that tourniquet. Well, during the meantime, do you want to lose the life, or do you just want to lose the limb? So you use tourniquet to the last resort before you get the blood. It's things like that we learned in it. And it's all, they all empty, they all know all that. And one of the things we did know is if you're there and you should call for EMT or ambulance, something like that, you tell them the situation of what you know about the patient or whoever might be injured or things like that. When they get there, you tell them what you know, and then get out of the way. Let them do their job, because that's what they're there for. You're not there to get, you might want to help them lift them up and do something like that, but when they get there, tell them what the situation is and get back and let them do their job. A lot of times that happens. A lot of times people are so concerned about their loved ones, they want to get over and get around and hug them, things like that. They mean well, but it's wrong. They're getting in the way of the EMT because they got to get the job done now. They can't wait another minute or two.
Right.
And so those things like that, you just learn those things.
It's great training to have. Well, so when did you start getting involved with the Chilocco Alumni Association?
Went to, I was going to a bowling tournament down in Ponca Bowl, and they was having an alumni meeting at the Pioneer Bank. And I thought, well, I was on the way down, so I thought I'd stop in and see who was there and what's going on. And there were several folks there from all over. The national board was there, and at the time it was Jim Edwards. And so I walked in and sat down. Come in and sit down. Everybody said, I know who you are. I said, and one of the ideas they were here was that they was wanting to start a North Central chapter. So there's several chapters all over, but they didn't have one in Ponca City, northern Oklahoma and southern Kansas.
This close to the school, they didn't have one.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And that's what I'm saying. And so I got in there, and that's when they was talking about it, and I got elected president. And I just dropped in to see what was going on and got elected the president.
Was this about 15 years ago?
No,
or
that was
10 years? 20 years?
January 5th of, I think it was 1990. Might have been 2004. No, it was sooner than that. It must have been about 2000. Anyhow, that was on June 5th.
Okay.
Anyhow, from then on,
My goodness.
Because I was the president then, I had to attend all the meetings wherever they had them, and so that's how I got really involved with the alumni. I was in it I'd go to their parties and things like that once in a while, not every year, but once in a
Right.
while. But when I became the president, then I had to go, it was fun because I got to see my old classroom buddies and things like that, meet new ones I didn't know that were there before me and before after I was there. And so that was kind of exciting to learn to do that, and I still enjoy that.
Well, you're pretty much, you've been in charge of the powwow for the last few years.
Probably about 7 or 8 years now,
7 or
I can't
8 years.
remember, yeah.
And you're in charge this year too.
The what now?
You're in charge this year also.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what changes have you seen over the years in the powwow?
At the powwow, when I first getting into that's with my regalia on and different things like that, there was just so many certain dances that this area of the tribe, the Oklahoma tribes, that they did, and I was involved in that. But now, due to the intertribal things that are happening throughout the United States, they're like the northern tribes, they're coming in, and the southwestern tribes are coming in, and things like that. They're intermingling things, and everybody's learning their way they do things, and so there's different kinds of dances that are happening now that didn't happen 30, 40 years ago. They weren't here, but now they are, because intertribal are getting closer and closer together, which I think is a good thing, because the cultures won't be lost.
Right.
We're learning from each other, and they're glad. Most tribes are glad to teach somebody else their way, their customs, and their culture, those things that they know, and we're the same way. And I can see that's happening. Even the songs that the singers sit around the drum, the song that they sing, I hear that all the time around here, but every now and then they got what they call a northern drum that comes in. They have different types of songs, different singing. And same with the southern, what we call a southern drum, when they go up in northern states, they have a place for them to sing their songs and things like that. So those things have changed from 30, 40 years ago. If you didn't, 30, 40 years ago, you seen some of the dances that you see today, you wouldn't know what they're doing, but now you do.
Why are the Chilocco reunions important to you?
We're in one of the things, Chilocco closed in 1980. The alumni members are getting really elderly right now. In fact, we're losing many. I think since January of this year, we've lost 19 alumni members. And I don't know how many there were last year that we lost. They're just, you get to that age where they're elderly, and we try to hold what we can together with what we got. As a remembrance and things like that. We really can't do anything like we would really like to, like rebuild a school and things like that, maybe even start a school. We had in mind one time to try to do that, but the cost of doing something like that was, we couldn't afford anything like that unless we had some really strong backing. And at that time, because Chilocco was closed and just the alumni members, nobody was willing to step in and back us up on that. And so trying our best to keep our alumni members together and remember who they are, just remember some things like that, things that we knew. And just like I say, for instance, the Seminole tribe was one of the really strong helpers, and they were from Florida. We got Seminoles here in Oklahoma, but the main tribal members were from Florida. And that's kind of a funny thing there, not funny, but it's one of the odd things is that up until 1957, the Seminole tribe was still at war with the U.S. government. And they finally, because the Seminole tribe went into the Everglades, they just let them go, leave them alone. When the troops would go in and try to get them, they'd get wiped out. So they said, they're going to go in there, leave them in, or just leave them alone. They were still at war. Well, in 1956, they signed a truce, a peace treaty with the United States government. And so that made it eligible for the Seminole tribe to send their students to Chilocco or wherever school they could go to, because of government school. They were eligible then. Up until then, they weren't, because they were at war with the United States. And that was one of the things, and due to that, we had several Seminole students come here, and they became one of the richer tribes in the nation due to their casinos and their whatever other things or enterprise that they've got. And they helped. One of the tribal leaders there was a great monetary help for the alumni and did a lot of things for us through that. And the different other tribes tried to come in and do what they could, but they're limited as to what they can help, what they can do. And it's kind of sad that we just don't have the backing that we would need to do things we want to do. And like I say, for this National Guard Armory up there, Chilocco, it was still in good shape last time I knew. And the 5 Confederated tribes were at one time were going to donate that to the alumni. I think it was going to cost the alumni $1 for that building. Just to then we decided if we decide to go ahead and fix it up and get it reusable again, that the tribes wouldn't come back in and say, "Well, we want that back," because that $1 said you sold it to us. And so with that, it's still in progress yet on the National Guard Armory. As far as I know, it's still in good shape yet. It could be needs some new doors, maybe a roof and things like that. We had engineers come in to give us an estimate as to the monetary cost on it, and we didn't have the money for that. I was looking at trying to find and get it, and we're still into that program yet. And some of the officers that were there then are still with the alumni now, and they know of that. Anyhow, those are things that's going on now that I know there's this year, I'm hearing a lot of folks gonna be here this year that never were here before. It's gonna be at Chilocco again at the First Council Event Center, because they're known that fact, because one day they may not be there. They may not be here. The reunion of the alumni may not no longer exist. And so that's one of the reasons they want to come this year, because they're all getting up to that age. Even my son, youngest son, is 51 years old, and he didn't graduate from Chilocco. He was there in 82 and 83, and I knew that the school was going to be closed because the government said it was costing them too much money. So in the second semester, I pulled him out of Chilocco and re-enrolled him here in Ponca City, because I didn't want him to start all over again, and that way he could have the spring semester here in Ponca City to finish out. And they did that fall. They did close the school that year, and it's kind of a sad thing. We really hate to see that happen, but there's nothing we could do about it.
Well, I'm glad you told me about the hopes for the National Guard Armory, and I hope that happens too. Is there anything else we should talk about that we didn't mention or cover?
Well, we were looking at trying to redo the National Guard Armory, because the Chilocco Indian School was well known for their Company C charting company, and clear back into, I think it was started in 1924. I think they first started up with the National Guard. And I don't know exactly when Chilocco got their first Company C there at Chilocco, and it consisted mostly of all Indian students. And the Colonel Ernest Childers and Lieutenant Jack Montgomery were in it, in the 45th National Guard C Company, and both of them were military Medal of Honor winners, both from World War II. Colonel Childers went ashore to Anzio in Italy, and he and Montgomery, Lieutenant Jack Montgomery, went ashore at Salerno, Italy, and that's where, in a place called Olovita, Italy, that's where Childers got what he did. He received the Medal of Honor for what he did, and Jack Montgomery was out in an open field somewhere in Salerno, and he was awarded the Medal of Honor. They both survived what they did. They were both wounded, but they survived. Now the third one was PFC Charlie George. He was in, he was an Eastern Cherokee from North Carolina, and he was in the Army, and he heard that the 45th Division, the C Company, was all Indian company, Charlie Company. So he asked his CO if he could transfer into that company, and they allowed him to do that. But when 45th was mobilized to Korea, they landed in Incheon, and they went on into battle. The November 30th of 1952, they was in a really bad firefight, and they sent these boys up to capture one of the enemy, and they did. They went up there, and as they did, kept him alive, and they fought their way up there, and they knew what was happening. The enemy was North Korean and Chinese knew what was happening. They were trying to wipe them out, and they had him, and they was taken back down a hill. And about that time, a grenade came in where they were at. Charlie George threw himself on that grade and took the full impact of the grade. He saved the military boys with him. He was in C Company, Charlie Company, so those could have been from Chilocco boys that were there. But anyhow, he was a Medal of Honor winner for that. And that came from the Charlie Company. And that's one of the reasons we want to honor the Thunderbird Division, Company C. When they were in Korea, Company C was known as Chilocco Company because they were all Chilocco Indians. It wasn't Charlie Company, even though it was, but they were known as a Chilocco Company. That's what they were called in Korea. And it's due to that, that's why we were trying to keep the 45th Division, the remembrance of them guys alive. And I don't know if there's, now, PFC Charlie George did not attend Chilocco, but he was with the 45th Division C Company from Chilocco. And as far as I know, that's the only high school in U.S. history to have 3 Medal of Honors from the same company.
Right.
The only high school in U.S. history to do that. There was other members from schools that were Medal of Honors, but they weren't from the same company. And Chilocco has that, they're known for that.
That's a tremendous contribution.
That's one of the reasons why we were trying to keep the National Guard Armory still intact, and maybe use it for some reason, for some purpose, whatever it might be.
Yeah. Well, I hope that happens. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Garland.
Sure.